Hi there everyone, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawwalker, your host. It's a new year, there are some new releases on the horizon that I'm pretty excited to talk about, and there's always more stuff that is going to catch me off guard, just like this new Darko US EP, Dethmask Part 2. And I say this caught me off guard mostly because they just put out their last album, Oni, at the end of September, which I enjoyed all around. I thought I had some great variety and was pretty forward-thinking as far as this breed of technical cyber death was concerned. Though while I am enjoying Dethmask Part 2, I think in comparison to Oni, it is a little bit of a regression in sound, and while it's not like this material is that far off the mark, it's just a bit of an odd step to make when they just put out one of the biggest leaps forward that they could have done with their last album. And I get that this is a continuation of Dethmask Part 1, obviously, but it still doesn't always feel in line with that material either. It's like they've reached this cool medium between that sound and the sound that they did bring on Oni. So what ends up happening is most of the songs here end up feeling more or less like half measures, where they very easily could have done more, but were trying to sort of rein in things to be more in line with the first part of Dethmask. Like on the track Hybrid Process, which is a great track, but it seems like it's always on the edge of really going for it, but never quite takes that last step into total sonic insanity. There's a lot of building and building on more and more tense and dramatic breakdowns, but they tend to trail off a little bit more than they blow up. I am enjoying the interludes a lot here, which pace things out quite nicely and don't really feel like they're here to pad things out at all. They do in fact feel musical and provide a lot of range to this thing. Numlock and Butcher's Block genuinely are beautiful ambient pieces that add a dramatic flair to the places on this album where it feels like less is being said. I also do love the final track Lone Exo, which ends up being the most adventurous sonic exploration on the album, with an almost exclusively IDM feel through its breakbeat-laden and highly compressed and distorted passages. It feels like they're kind of channeling some more Machine Girl here, which is super cool. What gets me here is that a lot of these tracks that are supposed to be the fully fleshed out, or at least the stuff that is clearly not meant to be interlude tracks, ends up being usually weaker than the interludes at certain points, which is just kind of weird. And it's not that any of these songs are awful, but they are all just guilty of that first point that I brought up, where they don't really feel like the next logical step, and indeed seem like a tenuous maintenance of where this band has already been. And yes, overall the tracks are still in that area that I would call good. At the very least, on The Fly and the Bee, you get one of the most solid final breakdown segments on the whole project, but it does end up being outshined by Lone Exo pretty much right after. I still think a lot of this material is quite good. I just think it could have used a little bit more tweaking. I really love the extreme electronic angle that they work with here. I'm just hoping that that aspect of this band becomes more of a focus and turns into something with a bigger, a little bit more ambitious reach. I do think as it sits, Darko is one of the best bands out there doing this kind of sound and style, but as a follow-up to Oni, this one doesn't land as hard for me. Again, love Numlock, love Butcher's Block, and Lone Exo. Those tracks are really well put together. Unmasked, Hybrid Processes, Future Doom, and The Fly and the Bee all have some great segments in them and cool ideas, but just end up in kind of a weird position because I'm pretty confident that more stuff could have been done with these tracks, and I think that is most apparent on Future Doom, which has a great back and forth in styles from segment to segment, but I just wish that there was more of this present in some of these other songs. And even with this track, a lot of the buildup ends up feeling a little bit slow on the delivery side of things. Anyway, I liked this one. I do think it is worth your time, as it is pretty easy to get through. I just wish that more of the ideas were developed further on here. To me, it seems like continuing this Dethmask series was maybe not the best move at this point. I think creatively they are far ahead of the game of where they were when they put out the first part of this series. And I suppose I could see this being an ongoing thing as a way to kind of recenter with an EP release following a main album release to sort of regroup and refocus to a main style that is present here. But what I would much rather see is harder, more experimental material that completely defies genre expectations, and I think that these guys could absolutely pull that off. So check this thing out. Even with its issues, I think this is still a pretty good listen. Dethmask Part 2 is a solid 6. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of this album in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe. Check out my Instagram, my Reverb, and my Depop. And if you like what I'm doing here, drop a tip in the PayPal. Thank you all so much again for watching, and we'll see you on the flip side.